session. Thank you for choosing to come here out of the very many other interesting sessions that you might have gone to. My name is Bernard Sabiti, and I will be moderating this session. So without wasting a lot of time, let me invite our panelists to come forward. But before that, maybe I just need to introduce our partners on this session. So I'm from Development Initiatives, which is an organization with an interest in using data to support development causes around the world. I'm originally from Uganda, but Development Initiatives has offices in the UK, in the US, and also works in Africa. Our other colleagues, we have the National Information Technology Authority of Uganda, which is the regulatory agency in charge of information technology in the Ugandan government. And it's my honor to invite its executive director, Dr. Hatwib Mugasa, to take his seat. You are welcome, Doctor. And we also have the Asia Foundation, also a development agency that's working in Asia. We have the head of its Nepal office, Sajana. You are very welcome. Please take your seat. Then we have the Deputy Chief Statistician of the Central Bureau of Statistics of Nepal, Dr. Hem Rejmi. You are very welcome. And we have other two colleagues who are online. One of them is Adrian Arucara Mendes, the Commissioner for the National Institute of Transparency and Access to Information of Mexico. He is in Mexico City. Adrian, if you can hear us, you can say hello. I know it's late in Mexico City, but we are so proud to be with you, Adrian. Thank you for being here. So our other colleague, Ms. Hajara Nanyanzi, the district planner for Kayunga District Local Government in Uganda, is still trying to join. I don't think she has joined yet. She's experiencing some connection challenges, but we have plan B in case she does not make it, and if she does, we are going to admit her into the meeting. So what are we talking about today? Strengthening local data ecosystems to support devolved decision making. So that's a summary of our panelists as you can see them with their titles and the organizations they represent. I really think this is a very important topic to discuss. We've all heard from so many perspectives on the importance of data. But today we want to focus ourselves on subnational level. What happens exactly below the national level? In many cases, you tend to see a lot of impressive innovations at national and international levels. But it's important to remember that the data value chain actually starts at a very local level. It's about a local village chief collecting information to give to the government. It's about a district or a municipality trying to have good data to use as evidence in policy making. In many cases, even in national agencies like the National Statistical Offices, that's the data that they use to actually inform their decisions. So we want to discuss today how to build the capacity on that very local level in order to strengthen the amount of data that is existing. Yeah, so that was the summary. So our first speaker was supposed to be Miss Hajara Nanyanzi, who basically is supposed to tell us what happens at a district. In Uganda, a district is a very small area geographically, but it is the first point of service delivery below the national level. So we wanted to understand the dynamics there, what happens in terms of the collection of the data, using the data and the transmission of the data to the national level. So if Hajara hasn't joined yet, I want to ask the technician to run her slides. I agreed with her that I can run through them. She's actually listening, but is unable to speak, unfortunately. So because she briefed me, I think let me just run through them very quickly, and then we go to the panel that is here. So, admin, are you able to put Hajara's slides up? Yeah. So understanding the data value chain in a typical district, this time the case study is Uganda. So that is the location of that district. As you can see, Uganda has so many districts. I think about 146 of them. And that is the location of this particular district, is in central Uganda, as you can see. And this is the structure of a district in the Ugandan context. So you have at the top the political leaders, and then at the bottom you have the chief administrative officer, and then technical departments. And the department charged with data and statistics is called the planning department. That's the one highlighted there, and that is the one that Miss Hajara is in charge of. So you can see it's an office with 3 people, but sometimes those positions are not necessarily always filled, because actually for Kayunga's case right now, it is Hajara alone who is running that department for all sorts of reasons, as we are going to see. So these are some of the administrative areas of Uganda. So there are districts, then there are sub-counties in rural areas, or municipalities in towns, and then parishes. From a parish you go to the village. So as you can see, the data collection process is actually bottom-up. The information is first collected in villages, is sent to parishes, then to sub-counties, and eventually to the district, which makes decisions for a district. So the district then uses this evidence to plan and provide services to the people that live in such a district, and sometimes the national agencies come and they also collect that information. So these are some of the major producers and users in that district. You have, politicians, of course, but also non-government organizations that produce and use data typically in the Ugandan setting. So this is some of the data collected under several departments in the district. Health, education, agriculture, and the like. Some of the examples of the data sets that the planning department deals with. Yeah, so this is the process. As you can see, every sector has a different process. The data entry is in the health sector starts at the health clinic. Again, there in a village, as I showed you. Education, it's a school. The head teacher or teacher first entering the data in a computer, and then the journey for that data starts all the way to the district. So that's how it happens all through. Yeah, so the challenges she wanted to share with us, so they are basically to do with data collection, data quality, and data use, then infrastructure, human resource, and organizational challenges. So the funding is a major problem. You know, because the resources are very, very few in a country like Uganda, data and statistics come last in the pecking order. So there is basically no money. She actually has no budget for data, even though she's in charge of data. So somehow she tries to get some money from here and there to consolidate this data, but the money is not enough. Then the human resource, she's one person in the whole department. 2 or 3 positions are vacant because of capacity to hire somebody to manage data in the district. Then, of course, appreciation of the role of data by policymakers in the district is also a challenge. Yeah, but there are also opportunities. The Bureau of Statistics has been supporting the district, and some national ministries have also come up. Especially the Health Department has some systems for data management run by the Ministry of Health and some other stakeholders. And there is a process of recruitment of a statistician and a biostatistician, which is a good thing. So in terms of what support she would like to have to strengthen data in her district, regular capacity building, increasing funding, standardize the tools. All the departments you saw, each one designs its own tools to send out there. So there is a lot of confusion sometimes around the different statistics. And also there are what are called lower level local governments. Those are parishes down there. There is a parish chief in every parish. Sometimes there is no electricity down there, so the idea of entering data in a machine doesn't even arise. Yeah, so you can see this is basically a typical district in Uganda. That's how the data value chain looks like. Thank you. I hope I've done justice to her presentation. Now, so let's now hear from another person from Uganda, as I told you about, Dr. Hatwip Mugasa, who heads the National Information Technology Authority of Uganda. This is the agency that is actually in charge of addressing some of these challenges. So, Dr. Mugasa, I'm going to put you on the spot to tell us your experience from NITA-U. I know you've been trying really to build the capacity in terms of the infrastructure to make sure that these districts at least have basic infrastructure to manage data and information. So tell us about that experience.
Thank you, Bernard, and thank you, the audience. I am heading an authority. It's a government autonomous authority, as Bernard has said, National Information Technology Authority of Uganda, or NITA Uganda. Our mandate is to promote IT usage within Uganda, both in the public and private sector. But specifically for the sub-regional sector, or what we call the rural sector, there's a lot of work that we are doing or that we need to do as a government. I'll just give a snapshot of what we are in Uganda. If you look at, and this is similar to the developing countries. In Uganda, we are 44 million citizens. 75% are in the rural area, unlike in the developing countries where you have the majority of people in the urban. Here we have more people in the rural area. And we've been like that for the last, we haven't had any change. And that trend is similar even in other developing nations. So we see a lot of data or data opportunities and data gaps within the rural area. But the development starts in the urban. If you look at most developing countries, whenever there's infrastructure development, the first location is in the urban location or urban area. That's where the capital is, that's where the financial cities are, but the data is actually more, there's more data that can be, or there are more opportunities that can be harnessed within the rural area. So what we did as a country was to adjust the way we implement. We have been developing infrastructure, as Bernard has said, for the government of Uganda. The biggest infrastructure project is the National Backbone Infrastructure. This is a high-speed fiber optic cable that connects all districts together. And then also we have a data center, national data center that we have developed. But the infrastructure or the national backbone infrastructure was started in the urban, not in the rural. It's 25% of the population. So in the last 5 years, we changed and said, no, we're going to go to the rural. And we designed a project called Rural Communication Infrastructure Project that was supported by our development partners, the World Bank, and also we had some support or technology transfer, knowledge transfer by the government of China through some companies, Chinese companies. So that Rural Communication Infrastructure Project, or RCIP, brought on 2 more connection points, and this was in the rural areas. This is the subnational area. We also gave free internet, because these are places where there is no connectivity there, or there has been no connectivity for a long time. But to get people using the solution, or get people using internet and generating data, we have to provide something, and that's the free internet through Wi-Fi. So we provided Wi-Fi hotspot. It may be common in developed and urban areas, but in the rural areas where there's no, the only communication is that 2G communication, or maybe postal mail. That's a major communication channel. Wi-Fi was a game changer. It got people using internet, using devices. It created that demand and generated a lot of data. And I believe in Kayunga, where Hajara is, they have also free internet. I was hoping to have her online so that she gives her testimony, but I think it was a challenge of software, the software that she was using that she wasn't able to connect. But she can listen in. I hope she can hear, and hope we can have her connect after. Once we connected the rural locations, these administrative points, we had to gather information or collect that data into our national data center. So we built a solution. We're terming it the UG Hub. It's like a connection point for all this data, and then it's stored within our national data center. The next stage, we're now looking at the digital transformation initiatives, now harnessing knowledge, extracting knowledge from this data, and that is now going to be used by the parishes, the chiefs, the administrators of these locations need information, and that's what we're now looking at, extracting information from this data that is going to be utilized. In a nutshell, that's what we have done, but there's a lot more that I can talk about, but in the interest of time, I'll not go beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mugasa, for that interesting insight into what NITA-U is doing down there in Uganda. Now, let me come to Dr. Rejmi. From a standpoint of the National Statistics Office, I know in Nepal you are in charge by law of coordinating the national statistical system, but I want you to tell us a little bit about how you've been supporting also the lower level administrations, the municipalities. What kind of efforts is the Central Bureau of Statistics taking to make sure that data at that level of municipality is good enough to be used? Thank you.
Thank you, Sabiti. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start with a little bit background of the administrative division of my country. The current constitution, which was promulgated in 2015, has restructured the country from unilateral to federal Now we have 3 tiers of the government, the federal, the provincial, and then local. At the provincial level, we have 7 provinces, and at the local level, we have 753 municipalities. Those municipalities include around 6 metropolitan cities, 11 sub-metropolitan cities, 276 urban municipalities, and remaining 460 rural municipalities. Altogether, 753 municipalities are there. The data and statistics is on the concurrent list, is on the common list for all the 3 tiers of the government. Federal government is also responsible for producing the data. Provincial government are also responsible for producing the data for their need. Similarly, the local governments, particularly the municipalities, 2 types of the municipalities, urban as well as rural, both are mandated to produce the data as well as use the data for the planning, for policy making, for setting the goals, and then even for monitoring and evaluation for the progress, what they have been achieved. The role is not quite distinct. What the federal agencies will do, what the provincial agencies will do, and then what the local agencies will do in terms of the data and statistics, though there are some division of work on the constitution. For example, the vital statistics, they should have to be managed by the local authorities. The unemployment data, they should have to be kept by the local authorities. Particularly the censuses, population census, agriculture census, economic census, or manufacturing census, the big censuses should have to be managed by the federal agencies. And even provinces, they can also produce the data at the provincial level for their own use. The role of the federal agency is particularly for developing the methodologies, to make the guidelines, how to produce the data, how to maintain the uniformity at the data collection at the local level, and then to train the people working at the municipal level to capacitate them. That is the major role of the federal agency. We all know that the data comes from different sources. The censuses, they can provide the lowest level of the data at the municipality level. Even we have the wards, more than 6,700 wards, which are the lowest administrative data at the country, administrative level at the country. Even the ward level data will be available only through population censuses. The municipality level data will be available either from administrative sources, like vital registration or the labor management information system, or from the agriculture productions uh, based on that particular municipality. But most of the other informations, for example, the social information like poverty, the living standards, these type of information are not available at the lowest level, not even at the municipality level, rather than the ward levels. Some environment related data which come from the satellites and others, the open source of the data, they are available at the lowest level, but most of the other informations are available only at the federal level or up to provincial level. This is particularly valid for the economic data. For example, the income data, the expenses data, even the employment related data or other informations, they are not available at the local level. That's why we are trying our best to develop the methodologies, then to integrate the data available from different sources. We have developed one portal called National Data Portal. This is like National Data Profile, where we have divided the indicators based on the level of the government. There are few indicators should have to be completed by the federal government. There are many other indicators which have to be completed by the provincial government, and there are very few indicators which have to be completed by the local authorities. The system is there, but the system is not functioning very well. Particularly, maybe the lack of resources. In this post-COVID era, the government are lacking from the money, and even the development partners, they are not assisting in a very happy manner. That's why the system is not working properly, though the system exists to integrate all the data coming from different levels of the government. Then we are open, the National Statistics Office of Nepal, which was recently renamed after the effective after the promulgation of the Statistics Act in 2022. Though we had the previous Statistics Act in 1958, which was revised in 2022, and then we have been changed from Central Bureau of Statistics to National Statistics Office. And now we are mandated to make the data policies, the policies regarding the data. We are mandated to support the local municipalities to produce the data and even to provide them if data gap exists. If there are no data, then we are also mandated to provide the data to the local authorities. We are trying our best, and then we have adopted the open data policy in Nepal, both in data use as well as in data production. Not only in the data use, for example, if there is a census or if there is a survey, and then we disseminate the data or we provide the micro data or raw data for the users. That's one way of the effective implementation of using open data policy. In another way, we are also open to produce the data. Even coordinating with the development partners, coordinating with the UN agencies, and even coordinating with the line ministries. For example, we are coordinating with the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. We are coordinating with the vital registration department, the civil registration, and then national ID department. We have done some type of the MOU, memorandum of understanding, with those departments, and then we are using the data generated from the administrative sources, which are representative at the lowest level. In that way, the data integration is being developed, not fully developed. The data integration system is being developed, which includes the data coming from all three tiers of the government, as well as from different sources, from different line ministries, agriculture, health, education, labor, and many others. And in this way, we are managing the data in Nepal. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Dr. Rejmi. It's interesting the convergences of some of the actions being taken, integration of the data, and then Dr. Mugasa, the UG hub also, I think, which is about integrating different data sets. Interesting how even when the two countries are very far away from each other geographically, it seems there is cohesion in thinking. Right now, let's hear from Sajana from the Asia Foundation. Dr. Rejmi hinted on the partnerships bit, but I want to hear from you, Sajana. Why do you think this is important, and what's the best approach to strengthening partnerships in this area?
Thank you, Bernard, and thank you, audience, for coming here in the room to listen to us. So Dr. Regmi has already touched based on our administrative divisions and how we are functioning in terms of managing the data and the data systems over here. So I would like to start by saying that data is a public good, and most of my talking will be based on building the right partnership at the subnational level, because at the national level it's been easy because the system was already there and we've been working with the national actors from long time ago, so it's easy to work with them. But at the subnational level, the local governments are very new to Nepal, and then the functioning of the local government, especially in the federal structure, is also new, not just to us, but also the elected members and the bureaucrats working over there. So working at the subnational level, it is first, as I mentioned earlier, it is first important to understand how the federal government works and how the data production cycle and the data use cycle works in any context. So this is the first pitch-in area in talking about what we are looking into when we are talking about the ingredients of the partnerships. Then it comes to the partners and partnership. Then we are talking about data producers, and Mr. Regmi has talked about data being the concurrent right, data being in the list of the concurrent rights of all three tiers of government. But I would like to mention here that local government also have the authority to produce their own data. And at the current moment, local governments in Nepal, maybe it's the same in other parts of the world as well, they are sitting with different types of data systems. In our case, it's 7 to 21 different types of different management systems that the local governments are working with. Having said this, so different systems are being operated by different departments of the local government or say the subnational governments, and these departments do not talk to each other, or means that the systems over there are operating in silos, right? So, and then there comes the political stream of it. Of course, I would like to even say that data is political, but this has never been into discussion in the way that it needs to be discussed as a political agenda, but it is political. So this demands the political buy-in. So to have the right partnership and to build the right partnership, we need, or our emphasis is to work with the political economy analysis of the system that we are working with. We need to identify the structures, the actors, and the institution within that one. So only with that picture, then we can talk about, or we can understand about the data culture in that one and think about the right partners and right institutions, then only talk about the design of what kind of systems do we want to build on. Then for me, as a person working in Nepal and into the data systems and also in the political systems for the longer period of my career, I see that having the stakeholders understand the process since the beginning is key to build the partnerships. So I would say not just to work with the bureaucrats in understanding what the data system looks like or how building their capacity to work in the computers or enter the data or to motivate them to use the systems into their day-to-day practices. We also need to focus on educating and orienting the political leadership about using the data into their practices, using helping them to understand the data culture and what values it brings into their political motivations as well. So this, I would say, is a key to enter into the local government or the subnational other governments as well. Then engaging with these actors, political and bureaucratic actors, in helping them understanding the value of data and evidence use in their decision making. And if you just do it once and then come back, as normally the development partners do, the trainings and then done, then it is not going to work. So to build on the right partnership, the other area that I would like to emphasize over here is to work with them together with examples. That is, now the modality of mentoring and coaching and working with them with examples is another key to build that partnership. Then after that, I would talk about improving the institutions as well. So many a times when we go to local governments or the other provincial governments, then we hear about lacking of data and together with their interest to work on data and evidence-based planning and decision making. But this doesn't happen in practice because at the end of the day, when we ask about their challenges in doing this, then they talk about not having a whole integrated system. So this is where we need to talk about bring in their buy-in to build the integrated system or improving the systems or institutions where they are working. And further on down there, then we now need to build their capacity to work on those systems and improving the institutions. So I now prioritize this not just in Nepal, but also in other parts of work. Data works are so much agency driven. So my work experience has told me that if I find a real actor over there or individual who has this zeal of making change through data, then that's easy to work, right? But that is so much agency driven because if that person changes, as in all the structures, there are transfers in the bureaucracy, then it's so difficult to get another person with the same zeal to work on that same level. So we need to work for, maybe the agency is something to enter into that institution, but we need to work on building that institution itself so that the partnership or the relationship actually works better and we can help the government and also the other actors improve the systems itself. So this I-Tech is as a behavior change and it's not say it doesn't happen overnight. needs continuous like push, and for that, like I also feel that citizen engagement is a key to that one. So if we have like continuous positive, constructive engagement of the citizen in questioning the government about data-driven decision making, and or also having like the right question to the government entities about the data and the data practices, then that would force the partnership with the government and help build the relationship further. Uh, so then I would actually end my first piece of talking, taking that bridging the gaps in those partnerships, we need that digital partnership as well. And this morning I was actually listening to the conversation where I really thought about like how do we have the conversation between the advocates of the advocates of the data and also the advocates of digital transformation come together and think about this as one platform to bring the data ecosystem into the main discourse. Thank you, Bernard.
Excellent, Sajana, thank you so much. Bring together digital and data advocates in the same room. That's a good point. Upon which to cross to Adrian Alcara, our colleague from Mexico. If I'm not mistaken, in Mexico City, it's probably now crossed finally to Thursday. I think he joined us when it was still Wednesday. Adrian, if you can hear us, I will ask the technical team to put your slides up, and very quickly, you talk to us about Mexico's open data policy, particularly the Open Infrastructure Initiative, and how you are empowering those communities with open access to information to create accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. Good afternoon to all. Good night in Mexico. I'm sorry for not being in the forum. On behalf of the National Institute for Transparency, Access to Information, and Personal Data Protection, INAI Mexico, I appreciate the invitation and celebrate the organization of this forum. It's an honor to share with what we are doing in Mexico, in terms of open data and particularly with the Open Infrastructure Initiative. Well, what is happening? Public institutions that guarantee transparency and accountability are often uncomfortable for governments. In fact, in Mexico, we warn of intention from the public power to weaken, deny, and with it eliminate the possibility of the people to access public information. However, projects like this allow us to keep mechanism true, which society can find out what governments do and how they do it. In this case, we promote the generation of open data related to the contracts of public works and infrastructure projects to motivate the involvement and the beneficiaries in these projects. Due to this, when there is not transparency, three problems can arise. The first, projects that are built by the governments not always are the ones most required. Here we can find a planning issue. The second, the construction costs are not the best ones and they use to be higher. Normally, as a consequence of our low competition. And the third, the quality of the projects that can be goods or services is not optimal and is not associated with the price we paid for it. What is open infrastructure? To prevent these problems, the NITA, in the partnership with expert organization, promotes the adoptions of the international standards the open contracting data standards, and the open contracting data standards for the infrastructure. Both standards are the basis of the open infrastructure initiative, which has three objectives. First, publish information in open and accessibility formats about infrastructure projects and their content. Second, promote citizen participation and vigilance in the exercise of the public budget. For this, we created a figure called the Open Data Network, where we're public organizations and will, as a private and social, can participate. And the third, promote the use of open data to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of public management, as well as improve the quality and price of contract goods and services. Joe Open Data helps. The develop this initiative, a pilot project was launched in 2022. Likewise, a capture system and data viewer developed in free software and open code were designed so that participating organizations, but mainly of the beneficiaries, can follow and look at the work projects in their communities. Quiz, Michoacán, Mexico. An example of the works developed in the framework of this initiative and the use of this open data platform in the case of Vista Hermosa, Michoacán. It's a small Mexican community of around 2,000 people. In this case, the municipal government decided to publish data on the collector de Occidente, an underground conduit in which the sewers discharge their drainage. In Vista Hermosa, there was extensive involvement of civil society organizations and the beneficiary population who visited the construction site to verify that was advising on time and according to the information published and the initiatives platform. This is just one example of the work we are doing with 23 public institutions, and this support 55 organizations and experts with a coverage in 9 states of Mexico. Thus, it's the end of the pilot project. We expected to publicize 43 postulate public works project, which together represent an approximate investment of more than $300 million with a benefit population of more than 1.5 million people. Open data transparency works, strengthened citizens' participation, and with it, our democracy. I appreciate your attention, and I invite I and I'm sorry, and I appreciate your attention, and I invite you to know more about this initiative by access seeing the website infraestructuraabierta.x. In addition, you can visit the website abramonmexico.mx, and where you could learn about of another similar initiatives that we are promoting in terms of open data in Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I think we can all see the power of good evidence and data in spurring citizens to action in terms of monitoring the quality of the work that's being done for the public good. Admin, if you could put back the slides that has all the panelists, that would be good for the case of those who've just walked in and don't know the people that are sitting in the front here. So I just want to ask a few more follow-up questions to the panelists so that we can get a little more background and context on some of the presentations that you made. One, let me start with Dr. Mugasa. You've really talked about all these things that NITA-U is doing, trying to create some sort of equality in infrastructure coverage between the rural areas and the urban ones. But we know that sometimes these massive projects don't come cheap. In times where resources are constrained, where are you getting the money? How difficult is it to mobilize resources to undertake some of these projects? We also know that, of course, especially in very rural areas, some of the other basic infrastructure like electricity may not be there. That's not your docket. You can't start planting power lines. So how have you been going about that in terms of the affordability of this infrastructure?
Yes, thank you, Bernard, for that question. True, we don't have resources. We have a limited budget as government. And when it comes to ICT, we're even getting the least in the national budget. Something that is very crucial, that is cross-cutting in all sectors. We are least funded. We do a lot of campaigns with development partners to support us, but also we know that government or the government cannot do all the work, and IT is a field that is best done, or it's moving faster in the private sector. So we work also with the private sector to develop the IT infrastructure where we can. We also partner with development partners who have the expertise, because our role as policymakers is to guide, and we can't guide and implement everything. So we work with the development partners, like I know DI is in Uganda. They are more skilled at the grassroots. So we come in and guide them or support them in an area where they are more skilled, and also the funders, where we can support as government, we support, but where we can't, we lobby for funds with our partnerships that we have internationally to come in and support us where we cannot. Now, the question on development in the support sector, especially power, we are taking this technology in rural areas, in the subnational locations, where probably there's limited power or there's no power at all. We have partnered, or we are working with now the utility companies, because that's a place where they're going, and we're also taking infrastructure there. In the next rollout of our projects, we're saying, let's go together. Let's not do one thing, then you come and do another. Or let's not take internet to places where they will not utilize it. We are joining with the utility service providers, both the government and the private sector, to share infrastructure. So we developed a policy, the broadband infrastructure policy, that mandates sharing of infrastructure. We are looking at data, but it should also be used in other infrastructure. One area that also we are trying to do is to minimize duplicate infrastructure. You'll find a location where a private, like a private telecom or a private ISP service provider is taking infrastructure, data infrastructure to that location for their own use. They're not going to share it with the government. They say, no, this is mine, I've invested in it, so I will not share. If you want to use it, they will charge very high prices. So we also have to go there. But now we're changing that. We're saying, no, let's not duplicate project implementation. And also where there is infrastructure that's not, let's plan better. Sometimes we may plan well, but we forget an area or a sector, especially the road network. We have been looking at just only the critical infrastructure in terms of data, but the road infrastructure is also key in our implementation. So we may roll out our fiber optic cable, and then the next day, what we call the Minister of Works or the authority in charge of road networks comes and uh, destroys it. Then we have to redo it. So all that is about planning. And I believe one of the speakers said, data is political. And planning here is very political. But having said that, there's an area that is still lacking: enforcement. Enforcement. We may have all the plans, all the policies, all the implementation, but enforcing or having an authority that enforces everyone, both the private and public sector, to do what they are meant to do, that's the biggest challenge in Uganda and in developing countries. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Mugasa. Now, if I might go to Dr. Rejmi, I know, like, you really talked about the idea of, some of the work being done in the multiple locations at subnational level in Nepal. In terms of the capacity of the Bureau of Statistics to, support all those multiple administrative units, how have you managed to do that? Do you have enough technical and financial means to reach all these areas and provide the support you need to provide? How do you innovate to make sure that you reach all of them equally and you don't leave any of them behind?
Thank you very much, Sabiti. As I explained in my previous talk as well, that the main mandate of the National Statistics Office at the federal level is to develop the methodologies, to develop the guidelines, to develop the manuals, how to collect the data, how to analyze those information, how to make them public for the benefit of the users. That's the main role of the Bureau. Then that particular function we are performing very well, in my opinion. But if the issue comes for the implementation at the local level, then there are vast differences at the municipality level. As I told that there are 753 municipalities, or all are not at the same level. Some are quite advanced, some are at the middle level, and some are at the bottom of the series, where we need to capacitate them. Yes, the capacity development is always a big issue, and then though the local authorities are mandated to develop their own statistical system, they are mandated by law, by legislation, how to manage their data, how to manage their information, but that doesn't come into their priority. That's the issue, no? They are interested to invest on the infrastructure, they are interested to invest on the education, health, and many other activities. And then the issue of data always comes with the low priority for the local governments. Then in alternate, if there is a data gap, then we try to provide them the data at the lowest level. But that is also not effective because the surveys that we implement periodically, they are not representative at the local level. They are representative only at the provincial level or a little bit at the ecological belt level and something like that, like urban, rural, or mountain, hill, or east to west, something like that, not at the municipal level. The real representation at the municipal level for the data is only the censuses. We all know that censuses are quite time consuming, very, very expensive, and then even very difficult to implement. No, that's why the censuses are done with a very long interval of time, 5 years or after 10 years. That's why capacity development or the partnership is the major issue for the development of the statistics at the local level. Partnership among the governments, partnership within the federal government, with the provincial government, with the local government, because they are almost independent on their work. No, their functions has already clearly been highlighted on the rules and regulations, on the legislations. And then partnership with the development partners as well. That's another issue because the capacity of the government is always less in the countries like Nepal, no, where we don't have sufficient resources in terms of institutions, in terms of human resources, and even in terms of financial resources. That's why we are quite open for the partnership. But here I have to mention that partnership, coordination, collaboration, these words are very easy to say, but very, very difficult to implement. As Sajna was highlighting that even development partners, they have their own intention. They may not come whatever the proposal we put forward with them. They have some their mandates related with them, and then they have some different intentions. That's why this partnership is also not working very well. It's also working moderately at the moderate level, but not at the optimum level. That's why we still need to work more on the real partnership among the government, among the development partners, among the data producers as well as data users. That's what I want to say right now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sajana, I'm being warned that we are running out of time. Maybe since you are both from Nepal, you and Dr. Rejmi, I would assume you have a similar view of things. I wanted the 3 minutes remaining maybe to get a question or two from the audience. Do we have like a question from the audience? And with apologies, of course, to you, Adrian, as well. I know you are listening in, but we are running out of time. Is there a question in the audience? If there is no question in the audience, then Sajana, I will come to you to take the last minute. How do we improve data use at local level? We've been discussing all this, but it's one thing for the data to be there. It's totally a different thing for the data to be used by policymakers, especially at this level. In your work building these partnerships, how have you been promoting the idea of actual data use at these levels?
Thank you, Bernard, again. So when he was talking about like defining the right partnership, then I was thinking about like, is it indicated to us as well? So that is the first thought that came to my mind. But like from our ways of working, like we are an adaptive modality of working. We have an adaptive way of working. So what we are doing at the subnational level is to force the right partnership, we are keeping data at the center, right? To make the local government work on the data and evidence, we are actually working in integrating the systems within them, because to make any like systems work work, we need to understand their pain points. And their pain points at the current moment is the systems are operating in silos, the departments are operating in silos, which means one system doesn't interact with the other one, and one data set doesn't interact with the other one. So if a service seeker goes to the municipality to get any services, so the person has to give the same information to different departments for different services that the person is seeking to. So that is where we are talking about integrating the system. The utopian view is like to have the interoperable system where like you have the unique identity number, and that number actually operates you to go anywhere. You do not have to mix up you give your information again and again. But at the current moment, because Nepal is so much like working with the funds of different donors, the APIs of these systems lie with like different developers. It's so difficult to converse those APIs. So that is why we are talking about the data lake at the local level, from where all the systems can pull their data. It's just about downloading, or say like say dropping and drop drag the data sets into that pool, so that whenever you want you can actually fish it from there. So this is what we call the integrated data management system, and being implemented in 6 of the local municipalities in Nepal. It's been tested and piloted, and we have been talking with the federal government to actually endorse it and take it further. So this system we are taking as a system which can actually build the partnership, because this touches the pain point of the local government, but not just the political, but also the bureaucrats and also the civil society. Thank you.
Excellent. We are out of time. Admin, no, yeah, I think we might be out of time. Yeah. So help me give a round of applause to my panelists, who I think did a great job. Thank you, Dr. Mugasa, our friend Hajara, who could only listen in, but unfortunately couldn't be able to join us, Sajana, Dr. Rejmi, and Adrian. I hope now we can let you go to sleep, unfortunately, there in Mexico City. And thank you for being a great audience, and thanks for our technical team also for the support. Enjoy your rest of the day. Thank you.